Hello,
Major.
Major
Welcome.
James.
I see.
How are we doing, gents? Want to just wish you whatever you want to. Is Kwanzaa safe? Can I do Kwanzaa? Can we just do something? But wonderful, beautiful morning over here in the Philippines, and always great to be on the show. And we are simulcasting.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thanks again, Jim, and welcome and big shout out to all those listening on the Goldwater simulcast. Again, thank you, Alex and Major, for making this happen. I know we have a huge spike in listening.
And thank you, Jim Cherney, for allowing us the airspace to broadcast by way of his networks on the Goldwater and HN. It's fantastic that this is all happening.
So here's the points. I mean, we can talk all we want to about what do we observe with our eyes, because it's simple. It's a knockdown simple thing to me. I mean, I'm not a complicated guy. I don't need to have a bunch of freaking numbers and ratios and square roots and all that stuff to prove, okay, that the Earth is what it is. I mean, I just can see it. Okay, this. We're going to tell our listening audience what went on last week, following the conclusion, and I gotta do again.
Drama. Spoiler alert. Drama.
Well, it's not. It's just let you know what's really going on, folks. I have the utmost respect I have for over a decade with Professor Dr. James Fetzer and his research. I mean, he's a bulldog. I gotta say that.
Ditto that. Yeah.
He's like he gets a hold of something, he chews it up and just doesn't stop, and it's continuous, and that's a good thing.
His research on the false flag agenda is rather impeccable, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, what I sent him concerning Emma, I call it Emma Lai, not Emily, Emma Lai Parker. And that I wonder what's really going on there, because his research is so well done that, first of all, you can't deny that Sandy Hook was a closed school. Like we have a closed system of the solar system, okay? We have a closed system around the Earth. We know that. NASA is now saying that. But in the same vein, here we have Sandy Hook. It was closed for mold and toxic substances. There was nothing there. It was just a bunch of used secondhand furniture there. We have the testimony of people that went there and bought on the cheap. We have the people buying used desks and things for their kids, and so we have the total smoking gun body of evidence that Dr. Fetzer put together, that under Obama this was a FEMA false flag exercise. There's no doubt about it. So what about these millions of dollars that the Parkers and other grieving parents raised? Do you remember back then, Alex, I brought this up. We talked about this on the show, if you remember. On this radio show, we talked about the clip.
Oh, yeah, we were there from day one on this.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so happy that we were able to talk with Dr. Jim about this, because he shares so much of the same research that we've already agreed on as fact.
So I just shared with the in an email, to a follow-up email with Dr. Fetzer, that what happened to me. I'm sitting there. Okay, here's conclusive evidence going on to, I forget the host. I think it was GoDaddy or whatever. This precursor to the FundMe account, right? This memorial to Port of the Emily to raise money. This was posted a full 24 hours before the event happened.
Yeah, so GoFundMe.
Yeah, it's like, how do you explain this, Mr. Parker? Okay, why not have media asking questions? So here in my hometown in Ogden, this is where the Parkers hail from. Okay, they're maternal grandparents of Emily are here, and the kids, right, living here, right, and this is my hometown. I said this is a perfect opportunity, because I mean, it was front page news in the Ogden local newspaper, the Salt Lake Tribune, other daily newspapers, right? We're talking about this great memorial service before the funeral itself happened. Okay, so I had a press credential. I had all of this as a radio talk show host. I went in fully with my little soundbite recorder, right, to go and meet with the grieving parents to ask them. And I was I'm saying I'll be respectful, but I'm gonna ferret this out. And you know what? I went into them. I asked for a media interview, and they actually had a representative of the family vet me before they would allow an interview. They had to vet me. Okay, there was no transparency there. In other words, I'm a radio talk show host. My show is called The Story Behind the Story. I've been doing radio for 20 years. I was a Peabody Award nominee. I am seeking truth, okay, about this incident. I have some very pointed questions. Well, Mr. Parker will not meet with you. Okay, well, would you give him a list of questions? I would like a copy of the death certificate of Emily. Surely he has it. Why do you need a death certificate? Well, is there a problem? Is there no death certificate? The representative starts looking at me, like, what's your angle? I don't have no angle. I want to see a death certificate. Why is there no, who was the mortuary that prepared the body? Could I, there's no mortuary here. There's a hearse, but there's, normally on funerals you have the program put out by a mortuary, right? There's none of this that we can verify that they actually, prepared the body. The casket is all closed. It's all a show. I says, you guys, there's questions legitimately, because why would you have this fund page coming up to raise money, which is in bad taste anyway, frankly, okay? Why would you have this going on a full 24 hours before the event? Is Robbie Parker a psychic? These are questions that inquiring minds want to know, all right? No, you're not allowed. We're not. And what's your name again? They took names and took notes. So this is hours before the memorial event. Okay, this is in the afternoon, early afternoon. The memorial event is right after work ended. Okay, but the funeral the next day. Well, I went there and I was amazed at the hype. It was like they've had a bunch of paid actors. I kid you not. Putting out, there's an army of people tying yellow ribbons everywhere, as you can see, all over the metropolitan Ogden City. I mean, it's everywhere. Who are these people? Who can afford to buy all these yellow ribbons? Oh, solidarity. This poor, and it just didn't smell right. It didn't pass the smell test. Because everybody said, we've got to outlaw guns. We've got to stop these crazies from killing people. And there was always all these debates of pro-gun rights, the NRA. No, guns don't kill people. Crazy people kill people. Yada, yada, yada. This was the ongoing fight and debate. It was in the newsletters to the editor. It was ongoing through the memorial service.
Yeah, and forks create fat people.
Yeah. I tell you. And so I'm sitting there. Well, I wanted to go to the funeral, and I was barred. I mean, that way, this is a Mormon church. It's a public arena. No, you're not allowed. If you're going to continue on, we'll have you arrested for trespass. So please leave the premises. What are they hiding? So when I look at Fetzer's documentation, I got to tell you, my blood boils. I mean, he's right on point with this. There's, what do you say, 27 to 100, up to $100 million raised for these victims and their families. Somebody made out like a millionaire bandit on this, pulling at the heartstrings. If that is not the very definition of fraud and racketeering, I simply don't know what is.
Maybe I should fake my own death, and then we can crowdsource and go fund a relief fund for the grieving friends and family, and then I can retire for life.
You can go set up residence in the Philippines. I'm sure you can do really well there.
Apparently, somebody knows how to do this really well.
I got to tell you, I am so frustrated with this, and so following up on Fetzer's work, we set up these. I wanted to introduce him to our joint friend Edward Hendry. I love Mr. Hendry's precise, articulate, no nonsense, straightforward, facts. I mean, you gotta love it. And that I submit that comes from his daily job. That's what he does. He's a very, very successful, attorney. Lawyer. I mean, he's nobody's dummy. Okay.
And he attacks this with lawyerly skills and rational debating abilities, so that no point is left up to conjecture or hearsay. Everything is completely referenced as far as his publications go, from what I've seen.
And if you're looking this, in the debate of philosophy, there's always the battle between subjectivity and objectivity. That's philosophy 101 at the college level, and Dr. Fetzer has to know this as a professor of philosophy. So we got to, what is objective? The objectivity is something that can be seen, proven as truth. So objective is a synonym with truth, right? Subjectivity is what person's own slanted angles of view on the subject, right? And this is what I was trying to get into the debate as we introduced.
Otherwise known as opinion.
Yeah, to Mr. Hendry. I wrote and said, look, Jim, you unequivocally state that you don't believe the Earth is an oblate spheroid. And he emphasized no, K-N-O-W it to be. So I simply asked the question, how do you know this, Jim? With all due respect, have you been up in a rocket ship? Have you blasted off into the upper Earth atmosphere and seen the rotating Earth? I mean, have you? I'd like to know. So how can you know it? Because I, on the other hand, as an objective observer, have taken Edward Hendry's book and replicated on the most basic level the experiment of water. And I explain this, as it's a simple thing. I have a summer residence up in the beautiful northern Idaho, Lake Pend Oreille country. I don't want to advertise this too much because I want to keep it a secret. I love that spot up there. I mean, it's my go-to place to just unwind. But it's a 45-plus mile long lake, and its widest point, it's over 7 miles wide. And at the southern end, where my residence is, there is a bay called Bayview, which goes out across approximately 4.3 miles to the opposite shore of a little town called Lakeview. That's a simple experiment. At 4.2 miles, according to the curvature of geometry, of curvature of an arc, there will be a 10-foot drop in curvature from your line of sight. And they can measure
following the 8 inches per mile squared rule, as stated by statistics that are sold to us.
Yeah, the geo measurement of the Earth, geometry. So it's simple. There in the bay of Bayview, there's these marker buoys that are quite prominent. They're white with a red shining strip on top and a flashing light. It's a no wake zone area, basically. Okay, so from that point, using my Humminbird GPS fish finder, I mapped out the distance straight across to the opposite shore of Lakeview, which is just over 4.2 miles in length. So conservatively rounding it downwards, it's 10, maybe 11 feet that it should drop. Okay, so I then went and got it on my boat. I measured the distance from the top of the buoy to the bottom, it was roughly 4 feet in length, 48 inches from the buoy to the water level. Okay, so then I went clear across to the other side of the lake, and could I see those buoys with my naked eye? No. My golly, by my naked eye, it looks like the Earth is curved. My naked eye is an eyeball. I'm sitting at, okay, well, if I'm just trusting my eyes, I just got to say the Earth is curved because I can't see those darn little 4-foot-high marker buoys. So I set up my telescope exactly 38 inches of height on my lowest setting on my tripod. I set this up on the shore, I could tell by a general area where the buoys should be. So I focused in with my telescope on the water, and darned if they weren't as clear as sitting right next to it. I could see the entire buoy from the top to the bottom at 36 inches, which was lower than the buoy was tall. Now, explain to me how the Earth could be curved if the water at 4.3 miles is perfectly level as measured by a telescope. I'm sorry, that's a simple experiment that anybody with a half a brain and a willingness to search for truth can do.
Well, also true in Edward Henry's book is explained how clearly the shore of Chicago can be seen from all the way across Lake Michigan, and that can't be possible if what we're told is true about 8 inches per mile squared. But there's also one other experiment that I find is the easiest one for anybody to go out and observe, because not everybody lives next to water. And that is horizon at eye level, no matter what the altitude. And I explained this to Burdock, Burdock, you're listening. You flew back and forth in an airplane recently. And as I advised, I asked you to just observe out the window. The horizon at eye level, maintaining the idea that, certainly you're going to see some curvature at both ends because of what we know as the dynamic paned window, meant to fisheye and artificially create some curvature. But still, even despite that, no matter what altitude you climb to, you look out at the horizon and it maintains itself at eye level no matter what.
Well,
is that to me?
Yeah, your ball's in your court.
Yeah, the last time that I was flying, actually, the sun was chasing me, so I left, and I actually only saw daylight when I arrived. So even though it was a 15-hour flight, the sun was chasing me. So
you just admitted that you're a flat earther.
Hey, so nonetheless, what I can say is that I left it around midnight. I arrived at when the sun was coming up. You could see it starting to rise, and it was just morning when I got in. So looking out the window on the way back, no. But I have been on a number of different international flights, and I have experienced what Alex is describing as an illusion, I guess, of curvature. But again, the Earth.
The real point I was driving at is the horizon.
Does appear to be round to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just the point I was driving at, though, is that the horizon, as you look all the way out in the middle of the window, regardless of how it curves and appears curved to the left and right by way of that dynamic paned fisheye lens window, that horizon remains at eye level no matter what altitude you climb to. And that's the point, not the sun, not the shadows, not the chasing of the light, the actual horizon.
Yep. And, I got to say, I have all of these old World War II footage of, and they have these constantly shown at the Hill Air Force Base Aerospace Museum. They have these vintage World War II Flying Fortress cameras where the bombing runs over Germany and over the Pacific Islands and that type of thing. They see them, and I got to tell you, I looked at those and I says, "Wow, how flat is that? Why is there such a difference between that and what you see out of a commercial jet airliner windows? Because they're surely different." And then, of course, Alex, we found the dynamic module smoking gun. It didn't surprise me, but what a huge hoax, man! This is a huge hoax. It is, and so I'm sitting here more and more and more and more and more. I realize, just as Henry found out and wrote in his book, this is the greatest mother of all conspiracies, because everything else the government wants you to believe is tied into this one central pillar. It most definitely is. And it's all designed to get people to basically say there is no God, to at least be agnostic, if not outright atheist. And this is what, again, I wrote this to a person in my says, I respect, philosophers. I respect those who think deep. I love to debate them. For when I was a college student, I would love to debate my philosophy professor, Dr. Gene Wolfe. We would talk. He invited me over to his house to talk philosophy, and we would talk about subjectivity versus objectivity versus the atheist, agnostic, nihilist, Bolshevik, Soviet models, etc. And going in, because I was also tying it into political science, which I was my declared major at the time was poli-sci. Well, see, we've got to figure this out. I submit back then because it's stunning. We had this guest come into what's called the Convocation series on the campus of Southern Utah University, where I attended and graduated. And Dr. Wolfe specifically brought this convocation speaker. And he was a well-known member of the Soviet Politburo one time, a confessed agnostic atheist. Flat out, he was giving basically a philosophy discussion as to the importance of humanism and, shall we say, scientism. Yeah, that's what it was all about. His first remarks, Alex, blew me away. He says, look, there is only one of two possibilities. Either there is no God, as I believe, or there is a God. Either way, he said, both scenarios are really frightening to humanity. Now, wait a minute. Yeah, because he says, if there is no God, then we have a tremendous responsibility to make our society great. That's a frightening task, but one that I'm up for. He says, but if there is a God, then we're basically, he didn't say this in so many words to paraphrase him, we're basically giving him the finger, and that's frightening and extreme too. See, and and so I debated this with Dr. Wolfe. I said, think about it. Isn't it so much simpler to say that the Bible is factual and there is a God, that we are not here by accident, okay? We don't have to be religionists. We don't have to say you have to join a church. That's not what it's about. It's about saying, explain creation, explain the miracle of our deoxyribonucleic acid genomes. Explain the diversity of nature. Explain how this happened all by random accident, that we came out of pond scum, out of a rock. I don't buy it. It doesn't make sense. I can't see computers evolving from pocket handheld calculators. There has to be intelligent design. And we debated this. But I like to debate it because it expanded my mind. I love to think deep about these things. And maybe I'm crazy, but I wasn't doing this for extra credit to get an A+ in Professor Wolfe's philosophy course. I wanted to see what made it tick, what makes the world tick. And that is what has driven me, I got to say, to be a radio talk show host. I want to find the truth of all things and see if, no pun intended, if things hold water. Okay, so when I got the book, when I got Hendry's book, wow, I said, this is not some crazy tinfoil hat nutcase stuff. Hendry makes an incredibly credible case for the topic. So I had to get to know him. I got a conversation. He was, as you know, a guest on the show 3 times.
Well, who sent you that book?
Yeah, you did. I fully, you sneaky dog. You didn't send any return address or say anything to me,
It was so great to see you get excited about the book, and then we inadvertently were drawn to invite Mr. Hendry onto the show, and gracefully he acknowledged, and the rest is history. So it's a beautiful story. It really is.
I asked him, and I'm sure he didn't want to talk about this, but one of my probing questions before he came on the show. So I said, look, knowing what you do for a living and knowing that you're very good at it, okay? And he made it a very clear point. He says, I don't want to be tied into what I do as being part of the discussion. Okay, he made that very clear on the radio show, and that's called integrity to me. Okay, but I asked him, Alex, why are you writing this book? There is no upside to it as far as I can see. All you're going to get is negative blowback and perhaps hurt your career. What are you doing this for? And his response was so pure. First of all, he says, I've never been asked that question by a potential radio show host or interviewer. He says, that's a great question. He says, I got to tell you, the reason why I do it is because in my core belief set, I am a Christian. I love the Bible. I love the Word of God. I love being a disciple of Christ. And I see this so very clearly that this heliocentric model is an attack on God, keeping him hidden. And it affects people's faith or lack thereof, he said. So I have to stand as a voice of truth. That's why he's doing it. And I submit there is not any more altruistic motive than that. I became a fan of Mr. Edward Hendry, and I remain so. I'm not a disciple. No, he is a good man with an honest heart. I got to tell you that. I'm just, there's so very few people like that in this crazy world. So when we talk about these topics, it goes out to all hoaxes, whether it's Sandy hoax, whether it's September 11th, whether it's the moon landing itself, which so is interesting. Fetzer got into that and showed all about the fake moon rocks and the fake moon landing. And he said it on the show last week, did he not? Yeah, the moon landing, Apollo 11, was a fraud and a fake all the way through.
It's a shame we didn't get to address the scripture of Psalms quoted on the tombstone of Wernher von Braun and its significance, because certainly he checked out, letting us know that he knew.
Yes, and so the email basically, I was a little stunned. I was shocked that when I introduced him in email to Mr. Hendry, the first response from Dr. Fetzer was that I misrepresented his position. I didn't think I did that at all. But again, it's a matter of perception, perhaps. I don't know what he was referring to, perhaps, when he said he was intrigued with the conversation in the first hour, really a monologue. I dominated, as I usually do, the conversation. But he was intrigued by that. That was his exact words as I listened to the rebroadcast, the tape. So, wow, what was I misrepresenting? You said you were intrigued about it. I want to, he couldn't get off the subject fast enough. He didn't want to debate it. That was obvious. Okay. So what was I misrepresenting? Maybe you can answer me that, Alex. Did I misrepresent what was said?
I'm bewildered by that as well. I think, I'm at odds between deciding, is this, just an incredible denial mechanism kicking in, or something a little more intentional. And considering the conversations that I've seen happen with this other person involved, I'm leaning toward the latter. I'm not exactly sure what's up with that.
Yeah, I am willing to give Dr. Fetzer the benefit of the doubt because, again, here's what happens in my experience, okay? When you embrace a lie and a hoax, whether it's Sandy Hook, whether it's September 11th, whether it's the greatest lie ever told, as Henry puts it, whatever the hoax is, there are people with a vested interest in promoting that hoax that's going to pay outlandish amounts of money to have what Henry refers to as, quote, the inevitable shills that come out.
For example, like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and guys like that, right?
Yeah, these are paid, well-paid people, right, who promotes and basically keeps the goyim, the human cattle, the deep state refers to us as goyim, useless eaters, human cattle, right, that keep them in denial. It's nothing to see here. Go along. We have all these statistics. We have all these numbers. And because the boat doesn't want to be rocked, it's so easy to say, you're right. I'll just go along. You're right. These are a bunch of nutcase wackos, do-nothings, right? Do-nothings that have no brain, right? So they resort to ad hominem attacks, and that's always, folks, in my years of debate at the university and scholastic levels, I got to tell you, when your opponent starts attacking you in ad hominem ways, you have won the debate and exposed his case.
Yeah, and as I say on my 8chan Flat Horizon site, which, folks, is www.8ch.net/Flat Horizon, I state very clearly on the front page there that, debate is, there's certain rules that we need to abide by, but, ridicule is used by one who's not only lost a debate, but is also a sore loser.
And is a shill, is a paid shill. You classified this individual. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know who this Jesse character is. I don't care to know him because he's been exposed. Okay, he's been exposed as a manipulator and a fraudster. I mean, when he did his measurements, I saw right off. I says, wait a minute, your measurements. This is not according to Hoyle. You're manipulating the data. Okay. It was obvious to me, but in a very professional way, Mr. Hendry said, look, don't pay any attention to what he's saying. It's obviously manipulated. Now, the question, and I got to post this to all listeners. The question is, what about this, Mr. Fetzer? You're the one that brought this guy in because you look at him as your expert to disprove what we're saying and what Hendry is declaring. This guy is proven to be a manipulator and a liar. I shall say that. He's lying, and he's not doing it innocently, okay? He's not stupid. That's obvious. He's doing it for a reason. And so, Mr. Fetzer, why don't you expose him? That's a hoax. It's a fraudster. No, what Mr. Fetzer is saying is, guys, let's be cordial. Let's be all nice. Let's not throw stones at each other. Let's all be sweet and kind. And
well,
nice
let's agree to disagree. Yeah.
And I can agree to disagree, but I cannot agree to people knowingly posting fraudulent results and lying about it, because that's called a hoax. I will not abide that. I can disagree.
Well, I think the bigger question here is, here's somebody who investigates hoaxes, who is being hoaxed himself, and then relying on this hoaxster as a source of supposedly credible resource for his argument. I don't get that. To me, that's a divide by zero moment.
Yeah, and so that brings in, as I wrote to you, I said, wow, I'm the jury's still out. I give the benefit of the doubt because of the years that I've known him to Dr. Fetzer, but something doesn't smell right in Denmark on this one. I am sorry. So rather than continuing on, because I wanted to get into the debate with Dr. Fetzer, saying, look, I submit to you that if you see the big picture, that this makes Sandy Hook and the Las Vegas shooting, though those are serious hoaxes, the biggest one of all is this grand lie, because of all the, think of all the trillions of dollars spent since World War II on this hoax. It's huge. It's huge, Alex.
As I like to say, $19 billion a year we give NASA, and all they give us is cartoons.
Gentlemen, if I could jump in, I thought this would be a good time for me to make a really, I think I mentioned to Alex, a.k.a. Redfoot, as we know him affectionately here. One of the things that we talked about when I had a brief stay over in San Francisco, we made a list of things, and the one thing I had a question mark about.
Oh, yeah, the airplane.
The first thing, the paper airplane. And that's the one thing that I wasn't able to promise, but that's the first thing that I think I'm going to be able to deliver very, very soon. Probably, well, who knows? Maybe while we're talking. We're going to create on our internal network a spot for Redfoot called the penalty box.
Oh!
Okay. And this is the people that are going to have access to this are all of the editors of the Goldwater and pretty much all the people that you all know. And of course the execs and the brass and pretty much anyone else who's interested in going into the penalty box. And he's going to have free reign of that. And we're going to pay close attention to it. And he will be able to post articles, which we will directly post onto the Goldwater.
Cool. Well, I thought the penalty box was for hitting below the belt in hockey. I went to a hockey game once. No, I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out. That's what it is. Alex, I thought you were beyond. I thought you outgrew hitting beyond the belt there.
Well, apparently it's all a subjective argument, and you throw high and apparently you land low. But
you're starting out. I mean, this is the most beautiful thing. It's the perfect place because just the argument that you all are engaging in right now, the point that you're making, is subjective to so much criticism that you have to be banned into a little corner to start.
Oh, absolutely. It is definitely one of the, if not the hottest potato out there. Nobody's
even going to keep you on the ice or keep you in the arena. So we're starting you off in the penalty box. So
I'll throw you a teddy bear there for the first penalty there.
I will hand out honorary dunce caps to anybody who wants to meet me over there.
Now, keep in mind, this is the arena of absolute last bastion of free speech, so you got a little bit of an audience there.
Well, fantastic. So I tip my hat to Dr. Fetzer with all due respect. As I wrote to him, notice this, Alex. The email exchange that says we can agree to disagree. I can respect that. Honestly, we can have difference of opinion and disagree without being disagreeable. But what happened? This Shield character came in and started to attack me immediately about this.
Oh no, yeah, no. The insults started flying, and it resorted to complete debased, absolute, ridicule, as I mentioned earlier, and that's the absolute proof that you've won.
I mean, it's like, okay, and all right, I respect people's rights to say my cognitive dissonance is such that I can't handle this. I can't. They start to roll. I can appreciate that. It's not for you. That's fine. Go ahead, be happy, go away, and be in peace, and live whatever you want to live. That's their right. I said this many times. We each have the right to be wrong. We also have the right to be right. Okay? And we don't have to force ourselves on anybody else that disagrees. But there's a difference in promoting the belief by means of obvious lies and hoax. That's where I draw the line on this. See? Okay. I put this out in my email. I said, look, all of these wonderful theoretic physicists, and I've actually met Mr. Kip Thorne. He's a Utah native, one of the top theoretical physicists, won the recent Nobel Prize in Physics. I engaged him. I said, wow, this is all theoretical, right? Why don't you simply, with all the brilliant theoretical physics minds at CERN and other places around the world or this plane, why don't you build a model where you can prove that water sticks to a circumference, an oblate spheroid, as the professor of philosophy would say, right? Oblate spheroid. Show me that water sticks to it. How? How do you make it happen? Electromagnetic gradients, theoretical substances, what?
Velcro.
And it never can happen because there is physical laws. That's what physics is. It's measurement of the physical laws. Water has physical natures and laws, it always runs downhill until it reaches a state of rest called a level. And that's just observable, okay? Now, is this level can be measured to be a gradient or lack thereof of an arc? Yeah, I've done that. End of story. The debate's over for me. I've observed it. I don't need to go up in a NASA rocket ship now. I know it to be fact because I've proven it. Because I know the properties of water. End of story. End of discussion. Mr. Fetzer, if you're intrigued by that, let's, what's the problem? Get rid of your cognitive dissonance of 30 plus years of teaching a lie and fess up. That's my challenge to you. It's never too late to change. You know what the Greek word in the New Testament for repentance is? The Greek word for repentance that's translated in the King James Bible, Alex, is metanoia. That's the Greek word, metanoia. And you know what that really means? It just means simply change your mind. That's all it means. So, you know what, Alex, before you got me this book and before I read Hendry and before I went and read Alex Gleason's 1892 masterpiece, I had to have repentance process. I had to have a change of mind process.
You and me both, because and again, thank you, Dominique. I know you're here and listening, lurking in the background. Dominique, our producer, who's also engineering tonight. If it were not for him and his persistence, because I was just like Jim is behaving right now. I was so kicking in my heels, digging in the sand, resistant, and I was hurling insults. I was just not having it. I was like, you got to be out of your mind. There's no way Earth is not a globe. And ultimately I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to look into this just because I'm good at figuring stuff out. I'll find a way to show you that this is bogus, and I will help you unravel the knots in your head, and everyone will shut up, and then we'll be done with it, and we can move on with our lives. And that was my biggest mistake, because that did not happen. I fell flat on my face.
And here's the point. I submit like Dr. Fetzer at this point, and like I can't speak for Major and others, but I say the vast majority of people in this world just haven't thought about it. That's the point. I didn't think about it. I didn't think it mattered one hill of beans.
Well, that's exactly it. Is like, not only do people not think about it, but they don't think about if it matters or not, because a lot of people, I've heard this said, and Burdock, you and I had conversations about this in a similar context. Yeah, and it just kind of came to the point of like, does it really matter or not? And what we're trying to say, and what I'm gathering true, you're driving toward is, heck yes, it matters.
It matters huge because, again, going back to the discussion of philosophy, this is what I wanted to engage Dr. Fetzer with. Because what is philosophy ultimately? It's the way your brain processes information. It's programming. That's really what it's about. You see, if in the back of our little minds, our compartmentalized brains, if we don't think about this, we aren't able to see the entire picture of the hoaxes being put upon the people. And if we cannot see the truth of the most basic things of creation, we're going to fall for any hoax. That's the issue.
True, if it's okay, I'm going to leave you and Burdock for a couple minutes. I'm going to step away, folks. I'm broadcasting remotely. I'm actually in a guest room while there's a giant Christmas party going on around me. So I need to duck in and say hi for a minute.
Stay away from the punch bowl there, Alex. we need you clear-minded now.
I will. But there's a friend here who I think I might want to invite and just have him say a couple words, because he's also a big enthusiast in this field of research. So I'm going to try and see if he's in the crowd, and if so, I'm going to try and drag him in here.
Very good. Don't bring any Bohemian Grove boys. You don't need any.
No.
Right.
But I'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay. So, Major.
Copy that. How are we, true?
For fun. So, you see what I'm getting at with this? It is a way we process information. I wanted to I was going to change gears a little earlier, but I need to jump in this right now. It's almost 5 more minutes and we're out of the first hour. I want to set this up for the next hour and we'll get Alex. We'll go back to whatever topic we want to discuss. But the news results are quite amazing. I want to point out what's happening here in my neck of the woods in Utah. Front page of today, Friday, December 22nd, Salt Lake Tribune. Under the subheading Drug Addiction, 5 counties of Utah join bid of the Utah Attorney General Office to sue makers of opioids. All right. Salt Lake County's resolve to take legal action draws massive support. They're trying to get all the counties of the great state of Utah to join in this massive lawsuit. It's very similar to what we saw happening in the 90s with the lawsuit against Big Tobacco. Now, let me just give you the highlights of what this article is saying. The reason why there is such an uproar is because of the huge influx of opiate-related deaths. These are not deaths, folks, from recreational use. No, these are deaths from prescription use. Okay, the death tolls have kind of just gone through the roof. There is the statistics here show almost 400 deaths in this last year in Salt Lake County. Utah County down in Provo-Orem to the south is second with nearly 300 deaths, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the point. They're suing these 5 big pharmaceutical companies for the opioids and basically saying they lied about their harmful side effects. They lied about the addiction rates and the obviously danger involved with them. But here's what they're not saying. Here is the story behind the story. I'm going to write letters to the editor. I'm going to write letters to Utah County Commissioner Bill Lee, whose picture is here in the paper. I say, listen, how deep do you want to take this down the rabbit hole, Mr. Lee? Do you realize where the opiates come from? Do you realize we're in a 16-year war in Afghanistan to provide the protection and the cover to mass produce opiates? Because 90+% of the world's opioids come from the opium raised in the Afghanistan poppy fields. Thank you, George H.W. Poppy Bush of the CIA. Do you know where I'm going with this now? Major, do you understand the implications of this?
Starting to get adrift.
16 years of battling. Now, I reported about this on the story behind the story because I was following this. My business is providing help to people outside of Big Pharma. I'm a big promoter. My company is called Mother Earth Minerals. I have an incredibly effective alternative formulation for pain relief. It's called Ultimate MJ, and the core ingredient of this is frankincense. Okay, frankincense in a powdered form has clinically been proven to be 300% more effective than morphine, which is an opiate. Okay, I've been saying this for 20 plus years. We need to focus on frankincense as a painkiller, not opium. But I get nowhere. I get attacked by Big Pharma. I get shills attacking me ad hominem, ad nauseum. Okay, I am tired of the lies because here's what happened. I had no problem in talking about this on this radio show and in public forums and anybody that would listen to me. Okay? The United Kingdom, the UK's Guardian newspaper did a series of articles in the year 2000, actually starting in 1999, where they showed that the Taliban of Afghanistan were the freedom fighters of the Mujahideen set up by Poppy Bush during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. These were the freedom fighters funded, by the CIA to rout out the Soviets, which were there basically as a KGB coup d'etat, if you will, to stop the flow of money that funds the Central Intelligence Agency from the beginning, which is raw heroin, opium, and opiates going across Pakistan into India to be manufactured into our pain meds that we know so well today. Folks, I'll continue with this in the second hour. We've got to get a hold on this. It's huge. It's huge. This is the story behind the story. I'm your host, Dr. Angel Buck. We have information from the Philippines. Alex Tudor is with us, but on a sabbatical by then. We'll be back after
Listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
Ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
and I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Join me weekdays for my new show, Tell Chris Joe. It's going to be a problem show brought to you live from Kensington. Thursdays, I'm dealing with hot topics, heated debate, what's new around the world, and ring-ins to discuss listeners' problems and offering considered and heartfelt solutions. So join me, Chris Hart, for Tell Chris Joe. Stop what you're doing, grab a cup of tea, and coming live from Kensington. Relax, let me entertain you with a coffee bar online. Listeners' very personal problems. So that's Thursdays, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. See you there. It's going to be lots of fun.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Looking for a nightcap to fill your listening needs? Come join us on Spaced Out Radio with me, Dave Scott, right here on Revolution Radio. Monday through Friday for 3 hours a night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we will take you down the supernatural path. From ET contact to the paranormal and all of the spiritual, cryptid, and conspiracy stories in between. You can find us right here on Revolution Radio, at spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter at spacedoutradio, and on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Spaced Out Radio. It's a night of talk and interaction. Are you experienced?
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We had no bump music, but that's okay. I'm bumped anyway. Listen, folks. Yes, this is The Story Behind the Story. I'm your host, Dr. A. True Ott. Joining me from the Philippine Islands. Beautiful Philippine morning of Saturday morning in the Philippines. We have Major Burdock with us. We have Alex Studer in the wings lurking. He's in a quite a upscale thing. Okay, Alex, yes, welcome back. Hey, we went to the break. I kind of talked about the headlines in the Salt Lake Tribune today. Before I get back into that, again, we just had to put the regular plug out at this top of the hour. We are not paid to do this radio show, ladies and gentlemen. We are absolutely nothing is paid out. I surely don't pay Alex. He's not on my payroll. I don't have anything sent to Major Burdock in the Philippines. He's doing it for his time that he's donating. That's what he's doing. We have no remuneration happening, and there is no corporate sponsorship for this show or even the station itself. All funds that are generated by you, the listening audience, through subscriptions and donations to the archives and other things. So please, if you like the show, give generously, especially this time where our homeless people need it. Right now, Alex, five Utah counties are joining in a bid to sue the top 5 big pharmaceutical makers of opiates. So we set the stage with this going on. Okay, you've been listening to me rant about this for I don't know how many years, but it goes back to when I first started doing the Story Behind the Story in the 90s. And this is my whole point, folks. You got to see what's happening here, that the black ops, the money that's generated through the CIA, through George H.W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, they call him Poppy Bush because of his affinity for the Afghan heroin poppy fields that he made deals with. Now, I set the stage because in Afghanistan, the Taliban, you see, was basically what's called the Mujahideen freedom fighters of Congressman Charlie Wilson's War. Great film documentary that was. It was not a documentary, it was a full-length motion picture called Charlie Wilson's War. It documents all this. So the Taliban, you see, was there. They basically did a good job in guerrilla fighting, and the Soviet Union took losses, realized it was a no-win situation, and they extracted themselves with as much dignity as they could before the Soviet Union collapsed, right? They left and went back home. Now we have a 16-year war right now. What's the war about? Who's fighting who, and why are we there? Now, this goes back to exactly what you have to, how you have to think. If your brain is not cognitive and seeing point A plus point B plus C, you'll never see this. But I'm documenting this in the year 2000. I had my guest William Bill Cooper on, and we were discussing this as his ex-Navy intelligence contact show. What was really going on in the CIA, the shadow government, we call it then. We didn't call it deep state back then. We called it the shadow government. Who's really making it happen? Who's controlling? Who killed JFK? It's these bastards. Herbert Walker Bush signed the checks. Okay? That's who it is. So we know this. We know the shadow government operating. This is in the late 90s now. We see that the Taliban, this is reported by the United Kingdom Guardian newspaper. They did a series of articles, and I reported on this many times. We hit this hard because what's happening is the Taliban were saying, wait a minute, we've been doing all this for you CIA boys for years, and we have no increase in our pay. We need to negotiate a new price structure. We think another 25% COLA, cost of living increase is valid. So the Guardian UK newspaper reports on the Taliban being the leaders of the Taliban meeting in Houston, Texas, with George Herbert Walker Bush in absentia, with W. Bush in Houston at their headquarters. And the report is coming out of Guardian. There's not a whisper of this in any mainstream media newspaper in America. I reported on it as a radio talk show host because I thought it was very salient to what's going on in this deep state shadow government. Because see what's happening, the Guardian newspaper said the Taliban they couldn't come to agreement. They were left in a huff. They left Houston to go back to Afghanistan, saying, well, we'll see about this. So this was 1999, right? The following year's opium poppy crop is reported by the London Telegraph. Now, the London Telegraph newspaper picks up the story. The entire year's crop of opium poppies was destroyed by the Taliban. They wiped them out. They said, well, you're not going to pay us an increase. We'll see. How about the law of supply and demand, boys? There's not going to be a supply, so let's increase the demand, and we want the price to increase. What happened then, I reported on, because the big five pharmaceuticals that produce this opiate as part of their base structure of profits, guess what happened? Their stock nosedived. It caused a real ripple in the stock market. Wall Street was in turmoil over this. I documented this and said, look what's happening, folks. Now I said this, and this is what the conversation I had with Bill Cooper. Will the didn't call it the deep state this, will the shadow government allow this to happen? Cooper said, no, it can't. You can't mess with their income stream. They can't mess with the almighty dollar. There is going to have to be a U.S.-backed invasion and regime change in the Afghan poppy opiate-producing capital of the world. It has to happen. I said, so how is this going to happen? He says, obviously another Pearl Harbor event, a false flag event. So this led him to in August of 2001. Bill Cooper was telling me, and he saw this on my radio show live. We were broadcasting live back then, on a real live radio station, right? My guest, Bill Cooper, said, I predict, and my intelligence sources say there's going to be a coup, if you will, a false flag event involving the World Trade Centers. They're going to bring them down. They have to. They have to. What do you mean? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. Silverstein is understanding. They want to destroy them because they're full of asbestos. They're a health hazard. They're almost ready to be condemned and all this. I'm saying, wow, really? Yeah, it's a pretty amazing story. I didn't really believe what I was hearing from Mr. Cooper. I thought maybe he was a little bit exaggerating. He says, no, I think there's going to be probably, because I'm piecing this together. There's all of this transfer. This is in the spring months of 2001. Transfers of army machinery, sophisticated M1 Abrams tanks, for instance. These are massively sophisticated tanks. They're not like your Sherman tanks of World War II. No, there's all kinds of training needs to be done. And you see, you don't deploy large amounts of armaments like this and training something called the Northern Alliance to overthrow the Taliban, right? You don't fund this to happen within 2 to 3 weeks of the false flag event. This is what Cooper was saying, is that this stuff is it's already being there. They're being trained as we speak. There's something that's going to happen, but it has to be precipitated by a false flag event. Wow. Okay. It makes sense, but really, okay. You say it. I hope you're wrong, but you may not be. the statistics don't lie. The proof you presented about the troop movements is documented in places like Jane's Defense Weekly, others. It's the industry insiders can see this, can put it together. So sure enough, September 11th occurs, and I'm saying, oh my God, he was right. Bill Cooper nailed this. Wow. And so what happened by the 1st of October, we see M1 Abrams heavy armor tanks going down the streets of Kabul and suddenly the Northern Alliance and American personnel are fighting the Taliban. Why? Because Osama bin Laden is hiding in the caves of Bora Bora. For hell's sakes, folks, how long do we have to keep fighting these terrorists in the caves of Bora Bora? It's been 16 years. No, what's really going on is the CIA is using the U.S. military, to expand the opiate production like never before. Follow the money, folks. These raw poppy opiates are harvested. They're brought over the Pakistani mountains into the big pharmaceutical manufacturing houses of India, and that's how we get the opiate epidemic. So, County Commissioner Mr. Lee of Utah County, listen to me. You want to sue the opiate manufacturers? Well, you better understand you're going to be suing Benestantia, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the Deep State. Good luck with that one. And in the same article today, this is front page news, Friday today, December 22nd. We turn the inside paper. We have Vice President Mike Pence shaking hands with who? Yeah, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani on Thursday. Pence is over there with the Afghan puppet. Let me read this to you. Quote, Vice President Mike Pence told Afghan President Ashraf Ghani on a surprise visit to Afghanistan on Thursday that the U.S. is, quote, here to see this through as they discussed a newly announced U.S. strategy to break the stalemate in America's longest war and consulted on upcoming parliamentary elections. Pence's pre-Christmas visit was the first in the war-torn country by either Trump or the vice president. It came as the Trump administration charts a pathway for ending the 16-year war in Afghanistan. We're here to see this through, Pence told Ghani. Well, who are they fighting, folks? Who's our enemy over there? Come on. The Taliban?
Well, actually, Obama never really got Osama. He's still alive. So he's still out there, and we got to fight him still.
Yeah, he's really that. Yeah. See, it's like, come on, people, see through the mirage, and go ahead and believe the world is spinning 25, 10,000 miles per hour to the equator, 70,000 miles through space. Because you can believe anything that you read in the newspapers. If you don't see this, yeah. I mean, come on, it's out of control. And we also see in the. I wanted to bring this in, Alex, and get your take on this, because this is there's always some really good headlines hidden away in the back pages of our daily rags. And
Dr. True, if you don't mind me coming in before we switch over to the new headline, we wrote one this morning. Pennsylvania doctor indicted on 19 counts on an opioid pill mill. Now, this guy handed out over 3 million doses. And you tell me that there's not some sort of connection, I mean, or incentive for this guy with Big Pharma to be doing something like that. And luckily, this guy is just insane. He's off the charts. You look at him, he's on his own drugs. It is insane what these people are doing. And just as a minor segue, I wanted to just I mentioned that we had somebody who was Phil, who's a writer for us, and one of his main areas of concern, and I don't know if you've seen a lot of the articles regarding herbs and herbal supplements and things like that, and specifically having to do with kratom and opioid addiction. I don't know if you're familiar with kratom. We're proud to say that we just brought him on full time, and so he's going to be coming over here to the Philippines, and he's going to be a powerhouse, an absolute powerhouse in our newly built studio over here. And I hope that you two can get along and really talk about these subjects.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind doing a little bit of self-promotion here because this is an important alternative thing. My formulation, we've been doing it for over 15 years, is called, we blend everything that's natural as far as an effective alternative to opiates. We've been promoting it. One of our breakthroughs about a decade ago, there was a pain clinic operating in Utah that a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, his brother is a licensed medical doctor there, worked there at the pain clinic for over 30 years, and his main clientele, his patient list, were Air Force and service personnel stationed in Hill Air Force Base. One of which was, this guy is like the real life Rambo. This guy is Special Forces credentials, 180 confirmed kills in Vietnam, operating behind the lines, etc., etc. And this guy had fallen out of trees, been wounded, has bullet fragments and shrapnel fragments in his body. And this guy is like a walking opiate. He's like, he can take enough opiates to kill an elephant, but he's built up such a resistance to it. And his liver was getting so toxic that it was starting to turn jaundice on it. And Dr. Taylor was concerned. He asked me if there's anything I can do for this gentleman. And I got to know him, this fellow. I have the utmost respect for his service record. Believe me, it's amazing. And I said to him, yeah, here's this formulation. Instead of opiates, let's use this non-habit-forming extraction of the frankincense of the Middle Eastern nation of Oman. This is called Boswellia sacra, the sacred oil of the Bible. This is the stuff that the wise men brought the Christ child. Same stuff, the frankincense drill. We have the exclusive into it, okay? And so I gave him a case of, I played the big pharma pusher. I says, here's a case free. Try it. See what you like. See what you think. And guess what? The results were off the charts. It was more effective than opiate. He didn't have the problems. It's not addictive, not habit forming, and there's no residue of it. Okay, this is the beautiful thing about what it does. And so what happened was Dr. Taylor said, wow, this is a great alternative to us as a clinic, putting these things that are now getting diminishing returns. Okay, we're going to start focusing on this. And I'm sitting here, yay, somebody that's can see the value of it. So what happened was became our single biggest purchaser. We were supplying literally cases a day of this and starting to blossom and snowball. Oh, but wait a minute. What happened was Dr. Taylor was called in to the owners of the pain clinic and said, wait a minute, what are you doing? This stuff isn't licensed by the FDA. He says, no, it's FDA grass, generally recognized as safe. It's an herb. It's natural. Isn't that beautiful? No, you don't understand. We can't stop prescribing because we lose our subsidy kickbacks. Bingo. That's what I'm talking about here, folks. This is the problem. You got all of these pain clinics receiving massive big pharma subsidies to keep peddling this crap, okay? So Dr. Taylor says, well, I have a Hippocratic oath to look for the benefit of my patients first and foremost. I don't give a rip about profits on this point. The next conversation was me. It was, Dr. Rock, can you do kickbacks? I says, hell no, I can't do kickbacks because I don't have the margins. Okay, I would if I could, but I don't have the margins. I can't compete with big pharma. which are pennies on the dollar. So I said, I do what I can. I'll cut the price, and you can charge it about this, whatever. But bottom line was this: Dr. Taylor was called in after that saying, you're still not prescribing your quota. Here's your green slip. You're fired. You're no longer. Well, wait, you can't fire me. I've got 30 years. No, you're done. You're bye-bye. Oh, well, I'm going to sue you because you can't. You can't do this over what we'll take this to court. So he hired an attorney, and guess who's involved in this as a witness? Moi. But guess what happens next? They set up a sting for Dr. Taylor because he's no longer has an office there. So he's still working with his patients because they've been trusting him. He's meeting with his patients at my office in my bottling facility, and even looking to set up an office, put out a shingle there and meet. I have a spare room and spare office. Wow, we're doing that. And guess what? He is arrested by the feds for illegally prescribing opiates. I kid you not. Because there were people that would come to him and says, I still need my opiates. Can you give me a prescription? So he says, sure, I know your history. I know your file. Here it is. And they arrested him for that. And guess what? They convicted him on this, and he's in prison. Talk about hypocrisy. Talk about a problem that needs to be fixed, and it's it gets this one thing that gets my blood boiling because it doesn't need to happen. There are safe and natural alternatives to opiates, but I'm not FDA. I am not I don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to bribe and pay politicians, okay, and judges. So we'll see what happens with this lawsuit. I'll keep tabs on it as we go. It's an important part of lab virus, Alex, and especially this next story because it ties in. It segs in. Anything before we leave that, Major? You want to jump in on? Any more questions?
No, absolutely. Hammer on the head right there. I look forward to introducing you to Phil.
I'd love to see him, and I'll send out some samples to you of our product and let you use them. You'll find it to be amazing. My wife had a major car accident, and her C2 and C3 vertebrae were snapped. I mean, not paralyzed, but she was told she'd be in constant pain. They wanted her to take the opiates. They said you have to take them for life. We had an insurance company settlement because they said, well, the evidence shows she's going to have to be on opiates for life. Well, I said, guess what, guys? She doesn't have to be because she has a much better alternative and she's out of pain with taking our natural product. That's just a close to home story, but we have literally hundreds of others. Okay, here's the segue. This is not really talked about on our live TV at all. This is a huge thing. The headlines is Homeland Security, our good folks at DHS. Where do we get DHS from? Department of Homeland Security. It came out of what? Michael Chertoff, the devil's own, as part of the September 11th lie and hoax. What is Homeland Security up to now? Well, get this. Homeland Security suspends bioterror testing in Oklahoma. Whoa. American Indian tribes have raised objections to the drills near the sites they consider sacred. Associated Press story, ladies and gentlemen. Newkirk, Oklahoma. Quote, the Department of Homeland Security said yesterday, it is suspending plans to conduct massive bioterrorism drills near the Kansas-Oklahoma border over concerns about their impact on grounds American Indian tribes consider sacred because more than 100 children are buried there. Homeland Security spokesman John Varico said in an email that the tests were suspended over objections to them taking place at the Chillicothe Indian Agricultural School. Do you get this, folks? They're testing bioterrorist agents, bioterror killing viruses on Indians at an agricultural school. I think the headlines would have been much greater if the headlines read the PETA groups are upset at animals being tested for bioterrorism drills. No, this is not even hitting the newspaper. This is buried in the back section of World News here. It's a little subsection.
True. I don't know if you're checking my blog lately or not, but I just posted an article from CNN yesterday about why the government needs to be making lethal viruses. And I encourage people to go to labvirus.com and check this article out. They're really just kind of, getting us conditioned to the idea that, our government makes lethal bioweapons on purpose. And folks, that's exactly what drew us together. True, you and I, we met on this discussion of bioterror as we began investigating the H1N1 explosion back in 2009. And it's what founded the blog. This is a very serious issue. And, getting back to the opiates, I have several friends that I've seen go down behind this, and I've seen it in hospitals, and I came out of surgery myself and was loaded up with scripts beyond belief on this stuff, and it was not easy getting away from that. And anything we can do to help the process, I'm fully behind. I love the idea that Boswellia is involved because, getting back to Dr. Andrew Molden's research, it seems to be an integral part of this GCMAF solution to what they're apparently including in the vaccines to cause cancer, something known as Nagalese.
Well, yes, I've been very quietly hitting this. As you know, my PhD training was brokered by the late Dr. Linus Pauling. He's the one that set me up with this program out of Germany, and I got to devote a whole show to this with you, Alex. Let's do that. Let's do it right after New Year's, and let's get Burdock's people involved, because
sounds good.
This is where it's really at, folks. I'm telling you, I have the answer to the GCMAF puzzle. I do. I have the answer. I promise you. We're talking about a patented substance. A patented substance out of Germany. I can't.
Well, that's good news. I'm looking forward.
It really is good news.
I'd like to, if I could, just really quick, I want to make a shout out to my friend. Hopefully he's out there listening. He's got a broken leg. His name's Jonathan. He was going to try and join us in our first hour. He's of shared interest in the topic that we shared, discussing the shape of the Earth in the first hour. So Jonathan, if you're out there, I hope you're feeling better and your leg heals soon.
Yeah, Jonathan, when you have leg pain, it's a great time to think about these deeper issues. I say that from experience. Recovering from total knee replacement surgery from a torn up knee from my basketball.
Yeah, and I'm a leg patient myself. I've got 15 surgeries under my belt, leg-wise. So I know a lot about this.
So on we go. Okay, let me finish this article. So this really ties in, Alex. I want to get your comments on the Chilocco School, which operated from the late 1800s until 1980. It was one of several federally run boarding schools where the U.S. once sought to assimilate American Indian children. Assimilate? Assimilate them into what? The hoax of our education system, right? The tribes say the federal agency is failing to protect a site with religious and cultural significance. The agency's environmental assessment for the test said several inert chemicals and non-hazardous biological materials were to be released in the atmosphere to evaluate the ability of buildings to protect occupants from outdoor biological hazards. Oh, my heavens. The proposed testing was planned for the months of February and June and July. Quote, while the work remains very important for the security of our nation, oh, please, further evaluations will be conducted to identify the best location for future testing, Verico said. Well, I hate to say this, but I bet they're going to come to Utah. We have a perfect little old American Indian site and a place out there where they housed Japanese Americans during World War II. It's a place called Topaz. It's now been FEMA renovated and made expansive extensions to this FEMA camp. It's a FEMA drill camp. I bet they're going to come here because they're right out of Dugway Proving Grounds, where much of our true biohazard stockpile is located. Please read between the lines. The story behind the story of this is huge. And here we quote Senator Jerry Moran, Republican from Kansas, said he was pleased Homeland Security has suspended plans for testing near the Kansas border. Quote, while the chemicals DHS plan to use in these tests do not pose any bodily harm, Kansans deserve a thorough explanation when any event of this magnitude is occurring, so close to where they live and raise their families. Moran said, is that political doublespeech or what? Okay, Moran, give them an explanation why we need to be testing inert chemicals and biological weapons, and even to begin with. Because you see, the real assessment, the manufacturers of this comes from Fort Detrick and Dugway Proving Grounds in America. It's not some Russian meddling threat. It's not the Chinese that are doing this, folks. It's our country and a little rogue state in the Middle East that's doing it, a place called Dimona. Okay, and that brings us to the next story. We have the United Nations taking Donald Trump to task like never before. Over what? Over the Jerusalem issue. Oh my goodness. Alex, you want to take this one?
I'm not sure where to go with it. I think that, obviously he knew full well in advance what the response from the United Nations would be. Uh-huh. And this is a very calculated move. And I think he's forcing some people's hands by doing so. And I think the public doesn't quite get it yet.
They're getting it. We have this sweetheart, Nikki Haley, right? The U.S. ambassador to the UN. Oh, she's taking names. I mean, she is. You either do what we say with this because we got lots of money and we're not going to keep funding you if you don't support us and what we do with our own embassy in Jerusalem. Oh my goodness, folks. The only thing the Palestinians have is there's a lot of stones in that little neck of the woods, okay, that little corner of the world. There's a lot of stones. They're good rock chuckers, okay? Boy, they can really let go of rock. But the Israeli police, they have bullets, man. They have machine guns. I've been there. I've been in Gaza. I've been
and directed energy weapons and ... Right.
It's like, are you kidding me? Come on. Who are these people? See, I said this last week. I'll say it again. I got to give Trump credit. I mean, he told AIPAC he was going to do this. A lot of people said it's empty rhetoric. Hey, the guy's doing it. He's not even been in office a year, and this is his big campaign pledge to AIPAC. The biggest thing that got AIPAC to give him a standing ovation. He says, I promise you. He says, I saw that thing. I says, oh my goodness, is he blowing smoke? But he sure knows how to press their hot buttons. He is doing exactly what he said he would do. It isn't rhetoric. Okay? Folks, the only way the Temple of Solomon will be rebuilt is through a massive jihad where the Dome of the Rock is destroyed through war. Okay? This is going to be happening. Okay? The esteemed rabbis of Jerusalem are just doing handsprings over this. They're saying the Messiah is coming. See, the Messiah of the Jews, their promised serpent, their one to create military might to Israel to be control of the world, cannot happen until the Dome of the Rock is destroyed and the temple is rebuilt. They're declaring, folks, these rabbis are saying that finally the Zionist agenda, the rebuild the temple, is going to be a reality now. They're declaring it. We can see it in our lifetime. Our Messiah is coming. Holy cow! While we're speaking, there are people dying over there. Okay, because this is jihad. This is the powder keg going up. I said this, didn't I? Did I not? Back in September. I said if he does this, this is going to be jihad. Keep in mind, there's over 1 billion Muslims, and they're not going to stand for this.
Well, I'm reminded of Friedman's 1961 speech at the Willard Hotel in D.C., where he laid out back then that this was going to occur.
Yeah. So what happens next? Okay, we see, the world is very close to going over the edge on this one. It really is. And we reported. I had my friend Jim Dooley on the show last summer, if you remember, that there's this Sam Gerard character, right? That is an Amish gentleman making a simple little home remedy salve, right? Sam Gerard, it's like a black salve. It's made of a special root substance. He puts it out, and he had the effrontery to say in a little flyer that the testimonials say this salve is really good on skin cancers. Well, guess what? Sam Gerard is rated by the FDA. He's hauled away as a threat to society, and he just railroaded. He was convicted, and he's going to be serving better part of the rest of his adult life in a federal jail cell for what? For making a natural substance and helping people? Now, my friend Jim Dooley put out an offer to the Amish community saying, look, we'll make this a battle, but here's what we have to do legally. Here's what we can do. We have to put political pressure. He wrote a pointed letter, which I read on this radio show, asking, and went to Donald Trump, President of the United States, POTUS, asking him to look at Sam Gerard's case and to give clemency, basically pardon this man. He's not a criminal. He's an Amish. I mean, this guy is the word Amish means peace, peaceful, amity. Amish believe in peace. He's not a trial threat, right? What happens? Jim Dooley's request and his pleas and his petition was all ignored. No responses. Thank you, no. Not even acknowledging they even got it. They just totally ignored it. And here is the problem I have with all this, folks, because yesterday, according to, again, the Associated Press, Donald S. Trump commutes the sentence of a meatpacking executive by the name of Shalom Rubashkin. What is this all about? Well, here it is, and I quote, President Donald Trump on Wednesday commuted the sentence of an Iowa kosher meatpacking executive who had been sentenced to 27 years in prison. What for? Convicted for money laundering, marking the first time President Trump has used his presidential pardon power. quote, the decision to intervene on behalf of Sholom Rabashkin, age 57, who ran the Iowa headquarters of a family business that was the country's largest kosher meat processing company, came at the urging of numerous members of Congress and a long list of high-ranking law enforcement officials, who, by the way, are paid highly by AIPAC, right, who argued the sentence was far too harsh for a first-time nonviolent offender. The action was, quote, encouraged by bipartisan leaders from across the political spectrum, from Nancy Pelosi to Orrin Hatch, the White House said. Now, I pulled this story up. The letters, the letters of support urging Trump to do this came from the exact senators and congressmen and women who are the highest paid donors of AIPAC. They receive the largest political action funds from the American Israeli Political Action Committee. So, of course, if those of you don't know what I'm talking about, what is kosher meat packing? What is kosher meat, folks? What it is it's really disgusting, actually. Let me be frank here. They don't just go and put the cow or the whatever, the lamb or whatever to death quickly. No, they string it up. The cow in this case, let's say a steer is really. You got to see a video footage of what they do here. This is animal cruelty. Where's PETA? Where's PETA in this, man? Because you string this animal up, the rabbi comes in and with a blessing, a Yiddish blessing, slits the animal's throat and it bleeds to death slowly. It bleeds it out. That's what a kosher packing plant is. The animal goes through torture as it's processed. But where's PETA? Where's the people for ethical treatment of animals where this is concerned? I'm sorry, this is he won't touch Sam Gerard. Okay, he won't even acknowledge that this man is totally being unjustly. I mean, this guy should not be in prison, but Mr. Sholom Rusbaskin. He's
well, true. I actually have a comment about this, and I've done a little reading about this, and I've been kind of lurking and observing some discussion threads on 8chan that have been talking about this, and there was one comment in particular that struck me, that this could very well be a very tactical divide and conquer move for the following reason. Apparently, this guy represents a particular sect that is in opposition to another sect, which set him up, brought the charges, and then stole his business away from him. And it could very well be that releasing him back into the community, because this guy's is apparently a serious operator, could very well be a divide and conquer kind of tactic to create more instability within the overall community. So I'm just putting that out there because it seemed to bear weight as far as the reading that I've been doing on this subject.
Could well be. I'm just saying that the anomalies here. Here's how the story pans out. Okay, Rabashkin was convicted in 2009 for submitting fake invoices to a bank that made agri-processors, that's the name of his company, agri-processors' finances appear healthier than they were so that it could borrow more. I mean, that's a page book right out of the Federal Reserve, folks. Okay? Inflate your assets, make every debt that you have appear as an asset, and so you can borrow more. It's called fractional reserve lending, folks. He just did nothing that the banks isn't doing. Okay? But his prosecution came after federal authorities raided the plant and arrested 389 illegal immigrants in 2008. Well, quote, and so here's these 100 former high-ranking law enforcement and Justice Department officials, including multiple former attorneys general, as well as prosecutors, judges, and legal scholars who submit this, quote, Mr. Rubashkin is a devoted husband and father, a deeply religious man who simply doesn't deserve a sentence of this length or anything remotely close to it, they wrote in a letter that urged Trump to use his executive clemency power to commute the patently, quote, patently unjust and draconian 27-year sentence imposed upon Shalom Rubashkin, a first-time nonviolent offender and father of 10, including an acutely autistic child, who I would bet was vaccine-related autism. But that's another story. Okay. More than 30 current members of Congress also submitted letters to the White House supporting a review and commutation of Rubashkin's case. But former prosecutor Bob Teague, who retired in 2011 after serving as a prosecutor and spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Iowa, said Trump's decision to commute Rubashkin's sentence, quote, makes no sense given Trump's repeated promises to get tougher and tougher on illegal immigration. Well, no, it makes sense if you know who's pulling Trump's strings. Okay, as in deep state individuals. Twigg said that every court that looked at Rubashkin's sentence had concluded it was fair and suggested that former Justice Department officials and lawmakers who supported leniency were unaware of the facts of the case. See, when does facts matter? What are the facts of his ties into organized crime of the so-called kosher nidra go in? Because like you, Alex, I've dug deep into Mr. Shalom Rubashkin's past and who he's tied to. You're right, there are competing factions inside the kosher nidra. It's a power struggle. It's all about money. It's all about money to these people, you see? And the bottom line is Trump is their puppet. He's going to do what they tell him. And we have also here on the front page, we have Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah. Oh, my goodness. Suddenly he's cheerleading for Trump like nobody's business. He's declaring that Trump could very well be the best president we've had since Abraham Lincoln. Now, why would Orrin Hatch make such a statement? Because I'm telling you, folks, nobody in the Senate is more, indebted to AIPAC than Orrin Hatch. He wears under his suit and tie a clenched fist around the Star of Rothschild, the Star of Mogen David, they say. And he said this in an interview of quite a few years back. I commented on this. He was in an interview it was a national interview when he was running for president. They asked him about his stance toward Israel, and he unbuttoned his collar and brought out this gold chain that he says, I have this right next to my heart all the time. This is the symbol of militant Zionism, folks. This is the militant symbol of Moshe Dayan, the whole Irgun terrorist organization that believes in killing people to promote the Zionist agenda. And Orrin Hatch said, I wear this to be reminded that there will never again be a Holocaust. There will never again be where Israel will be driven to the sea. There never again will Israel be a second-class nation. Israel will triumph. And he said this on national show. I'm sitting there, oh my heavens, I knew he was Zionist, but I didn't know he was that Zionist. So here we have, there's a hug fest going on.
True. On the subject of Zionism, something that I've been focusing on by way of a couple documentaries that I'd like to mention right here, right now. And one that I have just watched for the second time. It's a 6-hour documentary. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's The Greatest Story Never Told. And there's another, which is just about as long, called Synagogue of Satan. And both of these are available on YouTube. And I strongly suggest anybody interested in the actual history of Zionism, take in these two documentaries. It's about 12 hours total, but well worth it.
Thank you. Yes, I've seen those. Yeah, and wow, it's an important part of this whole picture for sure. Again, look who is promoting this heliocentric model. Look who Copernicus was. Look who Newton is. Look at the Royal International Institute of Astronomy in Great Britain. Look at the 33rd degree level Freemasons that are promoting this agenda, Alex. And this is what part of what Hendry points out so well in his book. It's a Masonic hoax from Copernicus to Newton to the present time of NASA. All of these astronauts, the astronauts, the knots, that are in the ISS. It's not happening, folks. It's a hoax. It's scandal.
International Fake Station.
And so we see all this going on. Who's behind it, folks? It's this tribe. And believe me, that's who controls the B'nai B'rith, the highest level of Freemasonry. It's what gives the agenda to the Freemasonic Lodge, whether it's York or Scottish Rite.
AKA the Jewish mob.
It is the Temple of Solomon, you see. It's their agenda to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. It's their Zionist agenda. So yes, Alex, you're right. You got to get a handle on the Zionism because it dovetails right into what we're talking about with Fetzer. It's this complete group of shills that are operating to keep you believing the hoax.
And beyond that, we're talking about, underneath underworld, Antarctic, Queen Maud land and North Pole entrances to further regions. And I don't know if you saw Tucker Carlson just the other night, but he had on a Navy pilot and some footage of a UFO critter craft, something that this Navy pilot vouched on television. He testified was not from this world. So Blue Beam is happening. And again, who was the orchestration of this? The Jesuit Pope Francis, folks. That's the agenda. Look at the new throne of the papacy. Look at this thing. It's reptilian. It's a lizard. It's unbelievable. The new Vatican throne. It's in your face, is what it is. Okay.
I don't need to jump in really quick here, but I want your quick impression of, and Alex, you might have to help True out on this if True's not familiar with Keck. But
yes, Kekistan and Pepe, yes, of course.
It's a little late to come in, but that is a frog. It's but it's kind of innocent.
And when upset, he cries "Ree."
I am not up to speed on Keck.
We'll get you up to speed on Keck. It's mimetic warfare, basically. But
okay. Yeah. I think I get you. When I got something in my gut that needs to be expelled, I use Epicac to induce vomiting.
This actually goes back to Egyptian hieroglyphs and numerology. It's incredibly deep. I'll send you guys if you're not in. I'd just be really curious to see what your opinion of it is, and it's an anomaly over here, and it's an anomaly that continues over here.
Yeah, I'd love to look at that. That's very intriguing. I am intrigued, in the words of the famous Dr. James Fetzer. I am intrigued. I seriously am. I'd love to see that. Alex and I can tell you the structure of code in the Holy Bible, the King James Version, around the sacred number 7 is very important to the Christian walk. I mean, you have this great book of study done by Ivan Panin, this Bolshevik nihilist atheist who was hired to basically take the work of a guy named F.W. Grant, who wrote a series of books called the Numerical Bible, where he was touching on this structured code of the Bible numerologies. Okay, so what Panin came in and said, guess what, guys? Grant is right, but it goes even deeper, and it converted him to Christ. It absolutely did. There was absolutely no way this could be statistically an anomaly. We gotta go, folks. We'll be back probably next week. I think there's a chance that we'll be broadcasting fine. Hopefully, thanks to Dom. Thank you, Alec. Thank you.
Thanks,
Jim.
Drew. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Major James.
Be well, be safe. Until next time.